Hello again, I'm Godi and you're watching the Infinity Kingdom Prime League playoffs. We're now in the elimination phase. The top 64 alliances from the pre-league have entered the playoffs, where each match decides whether you stay in the running for the championship or drop into the silver bracket. That bracket offers a second chance of sorts, but it's not the road to the title. Only victories in the gold path keep you in contention for the crown. Each week, alliances face off in a single match. Everyone plays with equal footing, same immortals, same dragons, same royal troops. No outside boosts, no VIP advantages, it's pure strategy. The win condition is simple: reach 100,000 points of violet breath before your opponent does. If the timer runs out, higher score wins. If scores are tied, alliance power decides the match. Let's take a look at what happened in week 1. Starting with group 1. 4 matches were played, and in 3 of them, the winners left no room for doubt. HMB took on EP, starting with slightly more players on the field, 21 to EP 17. By the end, both sides had brought in reinforcements, but HMB maintained the advantage throughout. They closed the match in just 35 minutes, hitting the 100,000 point cap, while holding EP to just over 11,000. A clean, dominant win. The next match saw ARC face off against WIB. ARC opened with 22 players to WID's 21, but by the end, WIB actually had more players online, 27 to ARC's 26. That didn't translate to control though. ARC held the upper hand throughout and finished the match in 40 minutes with a score of 100,000 to 18,000. DL versus DH was a little different. DL started with only 13 players, but climbed to 26 by the end. DH began with 16 and matched DL's 26 at full strength. Despite that balance in numbers, DH ran away with the match. Final score 100,000 to 15,900, one of the more lopsided results of the group. The last match was AOW against VT, though calling it a match is generous. AOW showed up with 26 players. VT didn't show at all. 0 participants, no presence on the field. AOW reached the point cap in just 25 minutes, completely unopposed. Why VT forfeited remains unclear. So after Group 1's opening round, HMB, ARC, DH and AOW move forward in the gold bracket. EP, WIB, DL and VT will have a second chance when the silver bracket begins. Moving on to Group 2, where turnout made all the difference. Go Plus versus Buns was over quickly. Go Plus fielded just 10 players at the start and only managed to bring that up to 12. Buns opened strong with 26 and held steady. The result reflected the gap. Buns had 100,000 points in 28 minutes, while Go Plus only managed 8,300. A clear win. Next, SV faced HLF, but like VT in Group 1, HLF didn't show. Not a single player on the field. SV, despite starting with just 12, secured the win in 25 minutes unopposed. BC and MHJ had similarly low participation. BC began with no players, MHJ with just 2. A third joined MHJ mid-match, while BC managed to get 1 player online by the end. MHJ closed the match in 32 minutes, winning 100,000 to 3,000. It was more of a technical win than a competitive one. The most active match in Group 2 was AOSK versus TYT. AOSK had 25 players at the start, TYT only 8. TYT did rally slightly, finishing with 12, but AOSK's coordination and numbers held firm. They reached the cap in 36 minutes, while TYT landed at 14,200. So by the end of Group 2's round, Buns, SV, MHJ and AOSK move on to the next stage of the gold bracket. Go Plus, HLF, BC and TYT will have another opportunity in the silver bracket. Group 3 gave us a few more competitive matches. and clearer effort from both sides in most cases. White Knight and DSP opened with nearly even numbers, 12 versus 11, and DSP added several more during the match, finishing with 18 to White Knight's 13. But the numbers didn't change the outcome. White Knight maintained control throughout and closed the match in 30 minutes, 100,000 to 12,000, 200. Navi vs Zhu was a walkover. Navi V never fielded a single player. Zhu had 15 at the start, finishing with 20, and completed the match in 26 minutes without opposition. That's yet another full no-show we've seen. SA vs Riff was one of the longer battles in this round. SA started with 10, Riff with 12. Both alliances added a few more players over the course of the match, ending at 12 and 17 respectively. It ran for 52 minutes, longer than most, but Riff kept the upper hand, winning 100,000 to 43,600 and death. Closer than the score might suggest. Finally, CN took on My A6. CN opened with 12 players, My A6 with 18. The gap widened by the end, 24 on 9 for My A6, 15 for CN. Despite that, CN managed to hold out for 53 minutes, making it one of the longest matches of the week. Still, My A6 took the win at 100,000 to 51,200, one of the highest losing scores we've seen so far. That wraps Group 3. Advancing to the next stage of the gold bracket are White Knight, Zhu, Riff, and My A6. DSP, WV, SA, and CN drop to the silver bracket and will have a second chance there. Group 4 opened with a strong performance from Ascendants of Asgard against Covey. They fielded 24 players at the start to Covey's 10 and maintained the edge throughout. Final score 100,000 to just 6,600. The match ended in 27 minutes, one of the shorter games this round. Next was FXXK versus HT, and this one stood out. Play counts were relatively even. FXXK began with 20, HT with 14, and both sides added more as the match went on. In the end, HT took the win with a score of 84,100 to 66,500. No cap reached. He ran the full 60 minutes, and it was the only match where the point limit wasn't hit. Order 66 versus Set on Fire was more straightforward. Order 66 had the advantage early, starting with 23 players to Set on Fire's 14. By the end, it was 28 to 18, and Order 66 closed out the match in 28 minutes, 1,000 to 10,700. Last up was TNG against HOD. TNG built up from 17 to 26 players over the course of the match. HOD started with 14 and finished with 19, but couldn't keep pace. TNG reached the point cap in 39 minutes, winning 100,000 to 24,200. That completes Group 4. Advancing to the gold bracket next stage are Ascendants of Asgard, HT, Order 66, and TNG. Cove, FXXK, Set on Fire, and HOD will continue on in the silver bracket. Group 5 delivered a few clean wins and a few matches that never really got off the ground. IKEA vs JLA was a one-sided affair from the start. IKEA entered with just 4 players, eventually reaching 8, but it wasn't enough to put up any real resistance. JLA opened with 21 and closed with 28 on the field. They took control early and closed the match in 26 minutes, winning 100,000 to 3,300. Inca and God was the most active match in the group. God brought 16 players, Inca just 9, but they recovered somewhat, fielding 16 by the end. God kept a steady lead throughout, and while Inca managed to delay the finish, the result was never really in doubt. God secured the win in 43 minutes, 100,000 to 15,900. BG vs IMPK was strange. Neither alliance fielded a single player. The battlefield stayed empty from start to finish. No score, no activity. But BG is listed as the winner, possibly due to registration precedence or having the higher alliance power. Officially, they advance, but it's a technicality. The final match saw LC face Maya. LC showed up with 12 players at the start and gradually rose to 15. Maya, on the other hand, never entered the battlefield. With no pressure, LC claimed the win in 26 minutes, finishing at 100,000 to 0. So from Group 5, GLA, God, BG and LC move on to the next stage of the gold bracket. IK, Inca, IMPK and Maya drop to the silver bracket and will have a second chance there, assuming they choose to take it. Group 6 began with one of the more even matchups on paper. Awul vs AWGM opened with 20 players on each side, a rare balance at the start. Awul pulled ahead in attendance, finishing with 29 on the field, while AWGM closed at 23. But despite the numbers, it was AWGM who held control. They gradually pushed the score gap wider and closed the match in 46 minutes. Final score 100,000 to 35,950. A solid performance under pressure. IC and AFF was far less balanced. AF had no players on the field at the start and only one joined late. IC showed up with 18 and reached 21 by the end. With no contest, IC secured the win in 26 minutes, 1,000 to 0. Next was Poor vs Heil Dunk. Poor brought 19 players early and increased to 23. Heil Dunk had only 2 at the beginning and eventually climbed to 7, not enough to stop the momentum. Poor advanced with a clean 29-minute win, 100,000 to 6,400. The last match in Group 6 was LoL against AID. LoL held a moderate advantage, 14 to 8 at the start, finishing with 17 while AID reached 10. AID did put up some resistance, scoring 25,300 points, but LoL stayed in control throughout. The match ended in 42 minutes, with LoL taking the win. So, at the end of Group 6, AWG, M, IC, HER, and LoL move forward in the gold bracket. AWO, AFF, Heilzek, and AD will get another shot in the silver bracket. Group 7 featured a few balanced matchups and one that never started. First, RS faced FEM. FEM brought 19 players early and climbed to 21. RS started with just 10, reaching 16 by the end. Despite the difference, RS did manage to score, but FEM kept steady control and closed the match in 43 minutes, winning 100,000 to 17,400. Lit vs Blue was a closer matchup. Lit began with 15 players, Blue with 13. Participation rose steady on both sides, 20 for Lit, 16 for Blue, and the match lasted 45 minutes. It was competitive, but Lit gradually pulled ahead and secured the win, 100,000 to 24,000. CK and ET had similar numbers to start, 13 and 15 respectively, but ET reached 23 by the end, while CK only brought in 15. Even so, CK controlled the map and tempo. They finished the match in just 30 minutes, winning 100,000 to 9,300. Lastly, SSQ vs RA was a no contest. SSQ had 17 players on the field at the start. RA didn't show at all. SSQ hit the point cap in 25 minutes without resistance. So, from Group 7, FAM, Lit, CK, and SSQ all move forward in the gold bracket. RS, Blue, ET, and RA drop to the silver bracket and will have their second chance there. Group 8 closed out the first round of playoffs with another mix of competitive matches and quiet walkovers. NG Plus came out strong against ICE, starting with 23 players and reaching 29 by the end. Ice began with just 12 and climbed to 17, but it wasn't enough to hold the map. NG Plus finished the match in 28 minutes, comfortably ahead at 100,000 to 7,400. Next up, Cow versus DQ. Cow had the edge in numbers, starting with 13 to DQ's 10 and finishing with 18 to DQ's 11. The score reflected that gap. Cow controlled the match and secured the win in 35 minutes, 100,000 to 15,100. 1K and Cups was another forfeit scenario. 1K never entered the field. Cups brought 11 players early and added one more before the match ended. With no opposition, they reached the point cap in 26 minutes. The last match of the round was DK against IC. DK brought 20 players at the start, increasing to 25. IC only had one participant online for the entire match. DK had full control and ended it in 26 minutes, 100,000 to 0. That concludes Group 8. NG plus Cow, Cubs and DK all move forward in the gold bracket. Ice, DQ, 1K and IC will continue in the silver bracket for one more shot. And that's it for week 1 of the playoffs. Most of the matches were straightforward. A few alliances walked into empty fields. Others met some resistance, but nothing that really pushed them. This first round was more about showing up than showing strength. Still, a win's a win. And to the alliances who did what they needed to do, congratulations. You're through to the next stage of the gold bracket, and the real challenge begins now. Because from here on out, the easy matches disappear, brackets tighten, mistakes matter, and for the first time this season, we might see what happens when two full-strength teams actually collide. So the question is, who's ready for that? Let me know what you think. Did anyone impress you this round, or are we still waiting for a match that feels like a proper fight? Thanks for watching. If you're following the season, hit like and subscribe if you want to catch every round as it happens. I'll see you in round 2.